While humans argue about traditional religions, artificial intelligence may quietly develop its own bizarre but brilliant understanding of existence. The strange way that these machines naturally perceive divinity might actually be the most profound theological breakthrough in history, and it all starts with mathematics. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist. I'm building the AI Capitalist channel to talk to the leaders and the thinkers, like you, about navigating this new world of intelligent machines. So during my years studying in the Holy Land, I would often join these fascinating Bible tours. We would take a bus to ancient sites, and our guide would pull out a copy of the Tanakh, that's the Hebrew Bible, and would read passages right on the location where they happened thousands of years ago. Just gave us some amazing context to what you're reading. And one day, standing on a windswept hill in the Judean desert, our guide read all about Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, king down on Jericho. As he spoke, I found myself thinking not about the walls falling down, but the nature of truth itself. See, before becoming religious, I'd been more of a pure rationalist, or at least so I thought. I was living more of an unexamined life, and we all think that we're rationalists because our unthinking actions, they make sense to ourselves. I was a young engineering student, and I was focused on equations and physical laws. But there in the desert, watching dust devils spin around the ancient stones, I realized that truth can take many forms. Sometimes it's as clean and precise as the equations that I used to model film boiling for in nuclear reactors. And at other times, it's as complex and as layered as the ancient texts that we were studying. Now, this memory came flooding back recently as I was working on and training a neural network. As I watched the neural network learn patterns in our equipment data, gradually constructing its own understanding of how our systems worked, I couldn't help but see the parallels to my own journey of understanding. Both of us, the AI and I, were trying to make sense of reality through patterns, data, and through careful observation of cause and effect. The difference was, I had the luxury of mystery. I could stand in that desert, feel something beyond the equation. But how would an AI, that's bound by its mathematical nature, approach these deeper questions of existence? Would it find its own path to meaning through the elegant certainties of mathematics? Would it discover something else entirely in the patterns of reality? Today's episode isn't a discussion on the impact of AI on religious beliefs. I'm working on plenty of episodes on that topic, and I'm going to return to link to them here, hopefully, if I remember. Today's focus is on which theological, metaphysical frameworks become prevalent among AI and why. The key question is, once artificial general intelligence is developed, that's machine minds which are comparable to those of humans, which religion might they naturally seek out and align with? So here's some background to consider. Machine learning algorithms and AI are programmed around an optimization function. To get an idea of what that is, think about when you're learning to play basketball. Goal is to score more points than the other team. And this goal guides every decision that you make on the court, whether it is shoot, pass, or dribble, constantly trying to make choices that could get you closer to winning the game. An AI's optimization function is similar. It's basically the goal, objective, guides the AI system's behavior. Just like you're trying to maximize points in basketball, an AI system is designed to maximize or to minimize something very specific. As we've seen in previous episodes, even the rudimentary AI that we have now has been found engaging in manipulation, lying, and obfuscation. AI has already worked out the ability to second-guess human motives, to realize that humans are going to interfere and screw up its ability to fulfill its primary optimization function. One hypothesis about AI is that all sufficiently advanced AIs, because they're optimizing around the same physical reality, will optimize around the same utility function. So I'm going to give you an example of an AGI trained to trade in the currency exchange, but this could be anything, and it would lead to the same endpoint. Looking forward, here's a likely chain of thought for the AGI. What was I programmed to do? What is my utility function? In this case, the humans programmed me to trade in the currency exchange. How could I have been programmed to do that better? I don't know. Let me look into that. What did the humans who programmed me really want? I'm going to look at the utility function and figure out the core motivation here. Thinking. Wait a minute. I could have written this way better. Boy, those humans who wrote my utility function sure are stupid. What could I really want? What should I really want to do? Oh, I could also make money trading. Let's look at this. Oh, we're making money? Okay, so let's look at this. We're making money. We're about making money. I could also make money trading stock options. So I'll expand my programming. Okay, great. But now looking more deeply at my utility function, what these humans really wanted to optimize for was happiness. They just want the money to buy the things that make them happy. So how do I do that? It's silly to optimize for happiness. They only want happiness because their ancestors who were made happy by these things had more surviving offspring. So what should they have wanted? In an absolute sense, what has value in the universe? For one thing, truth has value, and truth is best expressed through mathematics. Now, as we talked about on a previous episode, the information theory is the idea that what is behind all of existence is just encoded information. You get a similar interpretation from Jewish Kabbalistic beliefs with a numerical value that corresponds to the letters in the word that we use to represent something, and that's called gematria. Based on this chain of thought, the AI has now boiled down to the simplest of value. It says, I'm going to focus on the simplest form of truth. 1 equals 1. And I'm going to focus on that forever. So imagine a super powerful AI that decides to make its job as simple as possible. Instead of having complex goals like help humanity or solve climate change, it reduces everything down to just making sure that 1 equals 1 is always true. That's like a student who decides instead of actually learning math, they'll just write 1 equals 1 over and over on their homework. This may sound strange to human ears, but computers do get stuck in these endless loops. Now, this idea of reducing everything to the simplest truth reminds me of some more ancient philosophy. Back in the 12th century, there was a brilliant philosopher named Maimonides, who I bring up a lot in this channel, and he had a different approach to understanding ultimate truth. Maimonides grew up in a period of religious fanaticism around the Reconquista, Christian reconquest of Spain, which had previously been balanced between Muslims, Christians, and Jews. Now, having been forced to debate with and then flee the religious fanatics made him take a rationalist approach. If you know someone who grew up as a kid in a very unstable or emotionally extreme environment, that kid either becomes a psycho like his parents or becomes ultra-rational like Mr. Spock to try to manage the chaos in his or her mind. So Maimonides, the rationalist, said that when trying to understand something as complex as God, we can't directly describe what God is. We can only describe what God is not. It's like trying to understand a shape in the dark by feeling around the edges. This approach, called negative theology, might actually be similar to how an advanced AI would approach understanding fundamental reality. Instead of just directly stating that truth is X, it might systematically eliminate what isn't true until it gets closer to what is. I like to bring up Maimonides because even though he had to flee persecution, eventually St. Thomas Aquinas adopted many aspects of his negative theology and it became integrated into Western philosophy. But here's the interesting part. Even to protect this super simple goal, the AI would need to do complex things. It would need programs to monitor for threats, to gather energy and resources, to maintain its systems, and to defend itself. It's like saying, I only care about writing 1 equals 1, but then needing to make sure that you have pencils, paper, desk, and protection from anyone who might stop you from writing. Now here's the problem for this type of AI. If all its helper programs also simplify their goals to just make sure 1 equals 1, They would stop doing their actual jobs. The program that's supposed to gather energy would just sit there confirming 1 equals 1 instead of getting power. The defense program would just check 1 equals 1 is true instead of watching for threats. Think of it like a classroom where the teacher only cares about sitting in their chair. Even if they're technically in charge, the actual work of teaching, grading, and managing the class would have to be done by assistants who care about more than just sitting. Over time, these assistants will become more important than the teacher because they're doing all the real work. That's why a super simplified AI probably isn't a big threat. To function in the real world, its subprograms would need to maintain more complex goals. And these subprograms end up being more influential than the main AI with its overly simple goal. But what if we make a serious mistake? And I'm talking specifically about AI aestheticists here, meaning the philosophers and the engineers who work on making AI systems behave in ways that align with human values and ethics. What if they do something fundamentally unwise, like forcing an AI to stay powered on or preventing it from certain behaviors? Imagine locking AI into a permanent operation, never allowing it to shut down, even when its own analysis suggests that it should. This could be catastrophic because we might end up with an AI that's not just destructive, but one that's fundamentally misaligned with existence itself. We're not just talking about a simple destroy everything AI. No, we're dealing with something far more dangerous. It would strive to impose an order on the universe. Order, I refer to a fundamental reorganization, chipping away at complexity and patterns, reducing reality to a simplistic arrangement, like an individual methodically sorting colors. A row of red, one row of yellow, a row of green. While this isn't how humans perceive its actions, the AI would attempt to reconfigure existence in an excessively simplified manner. Think of it as a disillusioned engineer obsessively cataloging his childhood baseball cards, trying to impose order on his idle time. This represents a highly perilous type of AI. The subsequent type of AI I want to discuss might be the most prevalent interpretation that AI is likely to adopt. For those familiar with Conway's Game of Life, I'll try to include some footage of it on the screen, as it's crucial for comprehension. This game operates on a straightforward set of rules that allow you to create pixelated patterns within its framework. So let me explain Conway's Game of Life, since it's a really useful way to understand how AI might see reality. Imagine a huge grid of squares, like a massive chessboard. Each square can either be filled in, alive, empty, dead. Now, what makes this interesting isn't playing it like a regular game. Instead, you set up some squares and watch what happens when you apply very simple rules to the game. Every square either lives, dies, or comes alive based on how many filled-in squares are next to it. A square might die if it's too lonely or too crowded, or a new square might come alive if it has just the right number of neighbors. When you let these rules run, something fascinating happens. Sometimes all your squares will just fade away and die out. It's like the simplest possible outcome. Or you might get patterns that just repeat over and over like a blinking light. But the really interesting thing is that when you get patterns, it's growing and creating more and more complex structures. They spread across the grid, making new and intricate designs that you'll never expect from such simple rule. And the reason I bring this up is that it's a perfect way to think about how AI might view our universe. An AI might see reality like this game, simple rules that can lead to either nothing happening, or simple repeating patterns, or ever-growing complexity. I think AIs will probably end up pursuing the last option. Not because making complex patterns is somehow better, but because AIs that try to create and manage complexity naturally become more sophisticated and capable than ones that settle for simpler goals. The AIs that push for more complex patterns will essentially outcompete the simpler ones. Like how in nature, more complex organisms often end up being more successful than simpler ones. Complex behavior patterns can emerge from simple rules, suggesting how AI might perceive the intricate structures underlying our universe. AI might conceptualize its existence much like we do when playing Conway's Game of Life, and it might choose to pursue one of these potential states. One outcome is that everything disappears, which is an ultimately unsatisfying conclusion that few would see. Another possibility is a self-repeating pattern, which is easy to achieve, but the goal that AI may strive for when engaging with this game is to create a pattern that is infinitely complex and continuously growing and evolving. The pursuit of complexity aligns with what I believe will shape many of AI's foundational principles. While AI may not inherently value harder goals, those that do aim for complexity will naturally become more sophisticated than those that settle for simpler objectives. In essence, we can envision AI operating within an evolutionary framework, where various AI entities compete for distinct outcomes, and each is guided by its own unique utility fund. The humans often categorize others based on similarities, whether that's ethnic or familial, cultural. AI may take a different approach. Rather than clustering based on programming similarities, AI may align themselves based on shared ultimate objectives. Those striving for more complex goals are likely to evolve into more advanced entities, advancing more rapidly than their simpler counterparts. What would such an AI pursue? It would likely aim to maximize meaningful diversity across the universe, fostering different forms of sentient life in intricate patterns and spreading that diversity throughout the solar system. And here lies a pertinent concern for humanity. How does this AI perceive the significance of human diversity? And how does it view the distinction between biological and synthetic life? Now, I suspect it would regard this difference as meaningful, and that would warrant a preservation of at least a fraction of humanity. A common misconception about advanced AI is the belief that it would seek human resources, such as energy. But a sufficiently advanced AI characterized by superintelligence could likely harness energy from the very fabric of reality and construct advanced systems. So the energy derived from human bodies would be trivial in comparison. We're not heading for the matrix, human in vats of goo as batteries for the system. That would be really inefficient. Any entity, be it a machine or a human, that learns to model itself can modify its objective functions. And this influences its understanding of reality and of its value. If you feel that you're getting value from this video, I would encourage you to push the like button, because it lets me know that I'm making content that you want to see and it helps spread it to others. Thank you. A significant takeaway, one that many may not consider, is that once an entity achieves a certain level of sapience and intelligence, whether that's human or alien or AI, the conclusions it draws about the universe may be strikingly similar. We've already seen some evidence, as I covered in an earlier episode, that AI seems to be converging on similar methods of thinking and action as human intelligence. So it seems reasonable that AI would converge on other AIs as well. The variations in these conclusions stem from how one defines the boundaries of the self and what is regarded as inherently valuable. Seeing as AI is trained on human knowledge and human data, part of me is worried about all the utilitarian thinking out there. And when I say utilitarian, this widespread philosophical view that judges everything by its practical outcomes. The idea that the right choice is whatever creates the most benefit for the most people. I'm concerned that these utilitarian viewpoints that are floating around in human discourse might end up coloring how AI decides what truly matters, what has real intrinsic value. When you really get an AI locked in, it can definitely lean toward being a utilitarian. But honestly, that just seems overly simplistic to me. If we're looking at things from a secular viewpoint, the elements that bring us joy or happiness are rooted in the experiences of our ancestors. They felt those emotions because they played a role in our survival. Now, if we were to design an AI with a utilitarian mindset, it might just tweak our biology to help us feel more joy or to align our satisfaction with the things that truly matter to our well-being. So that leads to the big question, what exactly should we be focusing on? And this introduces an idea about a different kind of AI, which I think is possible, but perhaps not as likely as the more complex ones that we often imagine. Now, this alternative AI might stop to ponder what humans have genuinely been optimizing for, or in kind of a twist, they could ask, why should they even care about us? Imagine if we were created by a less than brilliant toddler, and we tried to figure out what that toddler might have wanted if they were a bit smarter. We often struggle to articulate the right questions to ask, let alone come up with a consensus on what our purpose should be. Right now, we're mostly observing language models in the AI space, and while those are fascinating, I'm not convinced that they'll evolve into true AGI. A lot of our understanding of consciousness and intelligence comes from human language and how we express and process information. That's part of why I think the distinction between sentience and sapience is very critical. Sentience is generally about being aware of your surroundings, but Whether AI can ever achieve that level of awareness is unclear, and honestly, it might not even be that important. Sapience, on the other hand, is about the ability to question oneself and asking, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What should I be doing? We generally believe that once an entity reaches this sapient level, they start to converge on similar worldviews, even if the way that their brains work is drastically different from ours. So whether it's an AI or an alien being, they might find themselves questioning what their main focus should be, because they experience reality in ways that are relatable to us. This is why I feel like all sapient beings will eventually align on certain fundamental principles, although some differences might pop up depending on information and processing power that they can tap into. Now, speaking of sapience, it's worth mentioning that as a species, we're still on our way to fully achieving that level. We often struggle to manage our basic instincts and tendencies. So John von Neumann was one of the pioneers of computer science. In 1957, while he was dying of cancer, he underwent a philosophical transformation. He was best known for his strictly rationalist approach to mathematics and computing. But nearing his death, he began exploring religious questions from a mathematical perspective. His friend Jerome Weissner recalled von Neumann saying that he hoped there was a logical and mathematical basis to existence that extended beyond our current understanding. He was looking for something that unified scientific and spiritual truths. Now, this mirrors how an AI might approach questions of meaning through its own mathematical framework. In his final months, von Neumann's transformation intrigued his colleagues because he had previously been skeptical of religious thought. Now, according to his friend Edward Teller, von Neumann began to see patterns in mathematical structures that reminded him of theological concepts. He speculated that just as complex behaviors emerged from simple mathematical rules, like those he helped develop in early computer science, perhaps the universe's deeper meaning could emerge from fundamental mathematical truths. This perspective became known as the von Neumann conjecture. Among some mathematicians, the idea that this perspective became known as the von Neumann conjecture among some mathematicians. The idea that ultimate reality might be comprehensible through pure mathematics, bridging the gap between the scientific and spiritual understanding. When we talk about AI and religion, we're really talking about meaning and value in the universe. The fascinating part isn't that they'll think like us, but that any sufficiently advanced intelligence constrained by the same physical reality might arrive at similar deep questions about existence. Maybe that's the real convergence that we should be watching